This segment is brought to you by Busamed Hillcrest Private Hospital.
Life is fragile and can change in a split second. As the world came together to fight a pandemic, Mr. Roy Muller fought to stay alive. Welcome to MediTalk.
Hi, I'm Roy Muller, and I want to share a very special story about my life. By profession, I'm a forensic auditor. Prior to the surgery, I led a relatively active and healthy lifestyle. I worked out in gym, average 4 to 5 times a week, ride adventure motorcycles. I've traveled across Europe on a motorcycle as well as in South Africa.
In terms of Roy as my dad as a person, before the whole operation and going into surgery, he was a very independent man, a very funny character, and always had a great sense of humor, obviously being very funny. And he loved his adventure motorbike riding, going out on the weekends, and just being out all the time. He hated being confined or someone telling him what to do, essentially.
During May, I had life-changing surgery at Hillcrest Private Hospital.
Hi, my name is Mark Fourie. I'm one of the intensive care doctors at Busamed Hillcrest Private Hospital.
I'm Sanjay Maharaj. I'm a cardiologist that's resident at Busamed Hillcrest.
Sister Twinkle Khan. I'm the unit manager here at Busamed Hillcrest Hospital of the ICU and high care departments.
Good day, my name is Graham Lawrence and I'm a specialist physician at Hillcrest Private Hospital in Durban.
My name is Carla Pillay and I'm a perfusionist here at Busamed Hillcrest Hospital.
My name is Hugh Staub. I'm a neurologist.
Washington, Dombo.
Hi, I'm Jaron Pillay. I'm a cardiothoracic surgeon here at Busamed Hillcrest Hospital.
I'm Justin Dreller. I'm a specialist cardiac anaesthetist, and it's funny, it'd be nice to talk about Mr. Miller, and I think the first thing that springs to mind really is how close he came to death on the very first day I met him.
During April, I contracted COVID-19, and the symptoms were very mild, and I received treatment from my doctor. And I was able to stay at home, and the symptoms were so mild that I actually continued exercising during this time. After I recovered from COVID, I started noticing that I appeared to have some circulatory issues. I would wake up with my fingers slightly blue, and of course I did have a pre-existing heart condition.
So I first met Roy on the 29th of April, at which stage he'd come to casualty for an incidental problem of a discoloured finger. And at the time I first met Roy, he seemed to be well. We unexpectedly found at that stage that he had a heart muscle problem, a condition called a cardiomyopathy. And as we discussed it more, he realized that breathlessness that he had been feeling wasn't indeed just a sign of a possible COVID-related infection, but he had actually developed a problem with his heart.
We first met Roy on I think it was the 14th of May, having had a recent surgery for an adhesive bowel obstruction, and we didn't expect too bumpy a course, although we were aware that he had a heart issue, as Dr. Lawrence has alluded to already. So we thought that might be a bit more challenging than usual. But his first day or two in ICU were quite uneventful, and then the wheels started to come off, so to speak.
A couple of days later, I got a call from Dr. Mike Fourie, who was quite stressed, quite anxious, and said, look, we're losing this guy. So I went off to ICU and had a look at him. So here was a gentleman who was intubated, ventilated, just had major surgery, was profoundly septic, and was at the end of usual medical therapy. We then put into action emergency protocol to get him onto ECMO, which is extracorporeal membrane oxygenation. And this is something that where we take over the function of the heart, take over the function of the lung. It's essentially a life-saving procedure.
So we put him on ECMO, and also we use the cell saver, which is a machine that washes the patient's blood, and then it allows you to give the blood back to the patient, and then you don't have to use as much bank blood. So we took him on ECMO back to the ICU, where he was very unstable, so we had to sit by his bed and monitor him and make sure that his hemodynamics were fine and control his bleeding. So that was basically like that for the next couple of days. It was a complete team effort. All the nurses, Dr. Pillay, myself, the intensivists, they were all hands-on there the whole time.
As the clock ticked, time seemed to be running out for Mr. Muller. Doctors began debating as to what the next step would be. In fact, his family was brought in to make a difficult decision.
Walking into the ICU, into my dad's ward, and just seeing him there, it was really, yeah, emotions just flew out like crazy, and it's probably the first time I've cried in like a good couple of years. It was, I think, 2 or 3 days later, and we got a call from Dr. Fourie. You know, things aren't looking too good. He was getting a bit unstable, monitoring obviously everything that they could. And they had to do a procedure, which was only the second time they've ever done it at Hillcrest Private, and the guys made it work, and it was a success. And then after that, he had pneumonia due to some complications of when he was going to hospital. So as he was getting through it, the pneumonia hit him, and his bacterial levels spiked, and the doctors once again were telling us, listen, you need to think about like what's the best thing for your dad. Yeah, I never thought I'd have to make a decision, but luckily we didn't. And the doctors came back to us a few hours later and said, no, the treatment that they've got is actually working.
I've got 2 grown-up sons, Ross and Dean. And during the time when I was in induced coma, it was very traumatic for them. And they received daily updates and sometimes hourly updates from the doctors. And they were just so amazingly supportive and brave. And they managed to look after all my affairs that I couldn't at that time. They spoke to my employer, they spoke to friends and family, and kept everyone up to date as to what was happening in terms of my progress. The first time they came to see me after I woke up, I was unable to speak. I was unable to write. My hands were shaking so much. So we had a difficult time communicating, and they completely misinterpreted things that I was saying. So we just had to laugh at each other because it was so frustrating, but yet it was so amazing that we could actually have that meeting.
Just thank goodness he was at Hillcrest Private, because the staff there, no matter what time of day we would call, there would be someone there and someone aware of my dad. I mean, everyone saw my dad as part of their family, and that also gave us a lot of peace of mind.
And eventually we managed to get him, or the intensivists managed to get him off the ventilator, and to start with eating and swallowing and all the basic needs of life.
Shortly after his chest was closed by Dr. Pillay, Roy was referred to us, an occupational therapist working as part of a multidisciplinary team, to start mobilizing and getting going. At the beginning he was extraordinarily weak. There was a few flickers in his muscles, and that was about it. We had a turning point on a Saturday. The physio and I were with him, and he was having a really bad day. I think he thought that he wasn't going to make it. And we were chirping a little bit because you need to make life fun. And he said to me, he said, well, I'll see you again. I said, well, if you stay alive, yes, then I'll come and see you tomorrow. And I don't normally work on a Sunday. And I came in the next day, and he was like a different person. He was feeling better, and he had decided that life was worth living, and he was going to fight for it. And Roy did fight for it.
And surprisingly, he did extremely well. And that was largely due to the fact that he was well motivated, and his pre-morbid situation was that he was quite active, and physically very active and very ambitious.
I've learned through this experience is firstly that life is precious, and one should never give up. Because maybe when you're going through a dire situation, one might be depressed. Very often the painkillers and medication make you think differently to what you would normally. So I would say that one should always push through and be positive and come out the other end.
I'm Chloe Gage. I'm a biokineticist, and I've been working with Roy since he's come out of the hospital as an outpatient. And it has been amazing to be a part of this journey that he is on, and to be a part of the solution to get him back on his feet and back training again, which he loves. We focus mostly on the exercise side of things and getting his function back to normal and back to what he was pre-op. The first day when he came through to see me and having some form of exercise back in his life, he was extremely happy and very keen to get going. Maybe a little bit apprehensive as to what I would make him do. He's not very keen on ladies' exercises and things like that. So yeah, I think he was a little bit like, oh, this is going to be different. What is this going to be like? But very excited to, get going again and doing something that was such a big part of his life.
Where there seemed to be no hope, Mr. Muller defied all odds. He made a full recovery and is given a chance to make more memories.
And you could see that this individual went through trauma of the highest degree, trauma that you can't even fathom what it was. So the trauma he went through mentally, physically he handled it eventually, but mentally that trauma was on a totally different level.
I remember one of the first things that happened once we got him off the ECMO and he was responsive again is he picked up a cell phone and immediately knew what the pin was to enter into it. And when that happened, I think we all breathed a collective sigh of relief, and we knew, provided we could get him through the other stages, he was probably going to be okay. So, I think that's the one sort of thing that stands out when I think back about Mr. Muller.
I think the most important thing is that we never give up hope. We give our best, and my nurses are selfless and committed, and they love what they do, and that's most important, because you have to have a passion for this profession.
So in reflecting on my experience here, I would like to stress the holistic nature of the treatment I received, because apart from the physical surgery, which clearly saved my life based on what I've heard, there was a physiotherapist, there was a psychologist, there was a rehab team, and post-discharge I was referred to by a kineticist, and I work out 3 times a week in gym now. I've gained 14 kilograms since my discharge. I'm riding my motorcycle again. I'm spending positive time with my 2 boys, and beginning to meet friends and other family members again. So life is really nearly back to normal.
Thank you for joining us on MediTalk. We hope to see you next week when we speak to more medical experts and bring you touching real-life stories.
Busamed Hillcrest Private Hospital is committed to promoting a safe, cost-efficient, and quality healthcare service to all patients. They strive to build a secure and integrated relationship between the staff, medical practitioners, and clients at Busamed Hillcrest Private Hospital. There is commitment to providing excellent care to all customers.